Imagine walking into a crime scene where the suspect has left no fingerprints, no footprints, no trace of blood. And yet, you know they were there. That's the mystery scientists faced when they stumbled across the faintest clues of a human species that lived alongside us, but vanished without leaving behind a single skeleton. We know Neanderthals, bones stacked in caves across Europe. We know Homo erectus, skulls hardened into stone after millions of years. We even know Denisovans, from a handful of teeth and finger bones pulled out of a Siberian cave. But then comes this shadowy figure in human history, a species that slipped through time almost without a trace, like a ghost moving silently across the Ice Age world. How do we even know they existed if they left no bones? The answer isn't in caves or stone tools. It's inside us. Hidden deep in your own DNA are whispers of a family member you've never met. A genome that doesn't belong to Neanderthals, doesn't belong to modern humans, doesn't belong to Denisovans either. A ghost species. Geneticists call it introgression. Chunks of DNA that entered our lineage, interbreeding with species that no longer exist. And when scientists scanned the genomes of people living today, they found patterns that couldn't be explained by any known group. It was like finding a letter in your family archive, written in handwriting no one in your family recognizes. So here's the hook. At least one species of human lived and bred with our ancestors, shaped who we are today, and then disappeared without leaving behind a single bone. No skeletons, no skulls, just echoes written in the code of life. Who are they? Where did they go? And why are they still inside? Before we answer, let me ask you, if you're listening in bed or maybe walking your dog under the night sky, do you ever wonder how many different versions of human once walked this planet? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And hey, if you're new here, hit subscribe so you don't miss the rest of this mystery. Because tonight, we're digging into one of the strangest cold cases in human history, the hidden human species that left no bones. Let's rewind to 2010. The Human Genome Project had just opened a new era. For the first time, we weren't just digging bones, we were digging code. When researchers compared the DNA of modern humans with that of Neanderthals, they confirmed what many suspected. Our ancestors had gotten very close to Neanderthals, intimately close. Roughly 2% of the genome in most people outside Africa comes from them. Case closed, right? Not so fast. Scientists began scanning deeper. When they looked at populations in sub-Saharan Africa, they found a mystery. Strands of DNA appeared that didn't match Neanderthals. They didn't match Denisovans. They didn't even match early Homo sapiens. They were older, stranger, like fragments of an unknown book spliced into the text of our lives. This was the first hint of what researchers call a ghost population, a group of humans who lived, loved, and interbred with our ancestors, but never left a skeleton to study. Imagine trying to reconstruct an entire civilization from a few borrowed words whispered in another language. That's what geneticists were facing. The evidence piled higher. One 2019 study suggested that West Africans today may carry between 2% and 19% of their DNA from this hidden species. Another paper proposed at least 2 or 3 unknown populations contributed to the human story. But here's the strangest part. These ghost species seem to have diverged from our lineage hundreds of thousands of years ago, before Neanderthals and Denisovans split from us. In other words, they were ancient even when our ancestors first met them. It's as if we were living in a neighborhood with relatives we didn't even know existed, until one day we shared a meal and some of their legacy lived on. And yet, no bones, no teeth, no artifacts we can link directly to them. They existed, but like smoke in the wind, they vanished without leaving their bodies behind. So how do you study something that left no bones? You look for fingerprints in places bones can't hide. Geneticists call it ghost DNA. Imagine your genome as a vast library with billions of letters. Most of it matches the books we know. Neanderthal chapters here, Denisovan paragraphs there, but sometimes you stumble across a sentence that doesn't belong. It's not written in the style of any author we recognize. That's ghost DNA. By measuring how different these ghost fragments are from modern human DNA, scientists can estimate when these unknown groups split from our lineage. Some date back 500,000 years. That's older than Neanderthals, older than Denisovans, which means these mystery humans had been evolving on their own path for hundreds of thousands of years before they collided with us. It gets weirder. These fragments aren't random. Some appear to have given us advantages. One ghost sequence may have helped our immune systems fight tropical diseases. Another may have shaped metabolism, allowing survival in harsh climates. In other words, their disappearance didn't erase them completely. Pieces of them live on, making us who we are. But here's the haunting part. If we carry their DNA, where are their bones? Did they live in places where fossilization rarely occurs? Humid jungles, acidic soils, river valleys where bones dissolve. Did their remains get destroyed before we ever had the chance to find them? Or are their skeletons still out there, buried under meters of earth, waiting to rewrite history the moment they're uncovered? Science tells us they were real, but archaeology has yet to shake their hand. Until then, we chase shadows. Think about what this means. Every time one of our ancestors met a stranger in the deep past, there was a chance that stranger wasn't Homo sapiens, wasn't Neanderthal, wasn't Denisovan. It was someone else. Picture a humid African night 200,000 years ago. The forest hums with insects. A small band of early humans follows firelight through the trees, and there, across the clearing, another band emerges. They look like humans, but not quite. Their faces are slightly different, their speech strange, their movements unfamiliar. Do they fight? Do they flee? Do they flee? Or do they share food, share shelter, share something more? We'll never know the details, but the genetic record proves at least some of those encounters were intimate. The hidden species left no bones, but they left children. And those children carried fragments of ghost DNA that spread across the human family tree. These encounters didn't just shape biology. They shaped culture. A group that learned a new hunting technique, a new way to gather roots, or a new type of song from a ghost population might carry it forward long after the people themselves vanished. The impact may ripple invisibly through time, influencing survival strategies long forgotten. But here's the twist. We don't know how many ghost groups there were. Was it one lost species? 2? 5? Genetic signals suggest multiple unknown populations, overlapping like layers of forgotten history. For all we know, the human family tree looks less like a neat trunk and more like a wild thicket. Branches twisting, crossing, grafting, breaking. The forgotten encounters remind us. The past was never simple. Humanity's story is not a straight line. It's a tapestry of connections, some visible, others only hinted at. Here's the uncomfortable truth. For all our science, we may never fully know this hidden human species. Their bones might have dissolved long ago. Their tools may lie buried where no one will ever dig. They may remain a ghost forever. And yet, what if? What if tomorrow, in a cave wall in Africa or a riverbed in Asia, archaeologists brush aside soil and find a jawbone that doesn't match anything we know? What if that bone carries the face of the ghost, the body of the people who live only in our genes? It would change everything. Suddenly, the ghost would have a name, a face, a history. Suddenly, the shadows in the genome would become flesh and blood. Until then, the mystery remains one of the most haunting in science. We know they existed because they are part of us. They walk with us in every heartbeat, every cell, every breath. But they left no bones, no monuments, no graves. They are the invisible kin who remind us that history is always larger than the evidence we can hold. So tonight, as you drift into sleep, remember this. You are not just Homo sapiens. You are a mosaic, a living museum of every encounter, every struggle, every forgotten love from the deep past. You carry within you the ghost of a people who left no bones, yet still shaped the story of humanity. Every single drop of your blood carries history. Not the kind you read in school books. Not kings and wars, but a deeper history. The story of survival, encounters, and mysteries written in genes. And hidden in those genes is proof that we are not alone. Not even now. When scientists sequenced genomes from African populations, they didn't just see Homo sapiens signatures. They saw fragments that seemed ancient. So ancient they predated the split between us and Neanderthals. These weren't random glitches in the code. They were long, continuous sequences, suggesting they were inherited, passed down through generations, like a family heirloom from an ancestor no one remembers. Think of it like moving into an old house. You repaint, you rearrange the furniture, you make it your own. But sometimes, in the attic, you find an object that doesn't belong to you at all. A photograph of strangers, a tool no one in your family used. That's ghost DNA. Relics from another family who once lived here, reminders of the lives that passed before ours. But what's most striking is how widespread these ghost fragments are. Entire populations across Africa still carry them, meaning these encounters weren't rare. Our ancestors met ghost humans often enough that their DNA remains part of who we are today. And some of these genes are not neutral. They may have been life-saving. Certain ghost sequences appear to influence immune response. In regions with high disease pressure, malaria, parasites, viruses, carrying these ancient fragments could mean the difference between life and death. So, while the species themselves vanished, their legacy lived on, locked inside us, because nature never wastes useful tools. This forces us to ask, did our ancestors survive because of the ghosts? Would humanity itself exist without this hidden contribution? Sometimes survival doesn't come from sheer numbers, but from the right genetic trick at the right time. And in our case, that trick came from a species that left no bones, only their blood inside ours. The fossil record is incomplete, and sometimes it feels almost cruel. We have thousands of Neanderthal bones, dozens of Denisovan fragments, countless Homo erectus remains. But for this hidden species, nothing. It's as though the Earth conspired to erase them. And maybe, in a way, it did. Fossilization is rare, dependent on a perfect storm of conditions. Bones must be buried quickly, shielded from scavengers, preserved in environments that allow mineralization. Too much moisture, too much acidity, too much heat, and the bones dissolve. Much of Africa, where these ghost humans likely lived, is the worst place for preservation. The soil is often acidic, the climate harsh, the landscape shifting. Rivers erode bones, jungles reclaim them, deserts scatter them. 100,000 years later, there may be nothing left to find. And yet, absence isn't proof of nothing. Archaeologists once thought Denisovans were pure speculation, until a single finger bone in a Siberian cave cracked the mystery open. If one cave could hide the Denisovans for tens of thousands of years, could another cave still hold the bones of this ghost species? The thought is tantalizing. Somewhere beneath layers of rock and soil, a skull might be waiting, carrying the face of a forgotten human. Will it look like us? Like Neanderthals? Or something stranger? That uncertainty keeps scientists searching. Until we find those bones, we live with the eerie fact that one entire species may have slipped away without leaving a physical trace. It's the ultimate vanishing act in prehistory. A life so real it touched our DNA, yet so silent it left no skeleton to speak for it. It's easy to imagine encounters between humans and other species as violent. Competition for food, land, water. But not every meeting ended in blood. Some ended in something softer, something far more intimate. The ghost DNA in our genomes proves that our ancestors didn't just fight the hidden humans. They loved them, lived with them, raised children with them. Those children carried blended lineages that still survive today. Close your eyes and imagine. A clearing under the stars, a campfire burning low, laughter between two people who don't speak the same language but still understand each other, a hand reaching for another. That's how ghost DNA entered our story, not through battles, but through bonds. And these bonds may have been essential. In small, scattered groups, survival depended on connection. A band of early humans might number only a few dozen individuals. Without fresh genetic input, inbreeding could weaken them. Meeting and mixing with another species, even one that would vanish, may have refreshed our lineage, strengthened it, allowed us to persist. There's something profoundly human in that realization. Even across divides of species, we found ways to connect. The ghost people may be gone, but the fact that they remain in our blood is proof of relationships that transcended barriers. So tonight, as you fall asleep, consider this. Part of who you are may come from a love story written 200,000 years ago, between a human and someone who wasn't quite human, but became family all the same. Our old picture of human history was simple. A ladder, climbing steadily from primitive ape to modern human. But the more evidence we uncover, the more we realize it wasn't a ladder. It was a tangled tapestry, woven from many threads, some bright, some dark, some snapped, some surviving only as faint strands. We used to think only 4 or 5 human species existed at once. Now, evidence suggests there were over 10. Homo floresiensis in Indonesia, Homo luzonensis in the Philippines, Neanderthals across Europe, Denisovans across Asia, modern humans spreading out of Africa, and somewhere in the shadows, the hidden humans who left no bones. Imagine that world. Different species meeting, trading, competing, loving, disappearing. Some left behind caves full of art. Others left skeletons frozen in permafrost. Some, like the hidden species, left only invisible fingerprints in our DNA. This tapestry tells us something important. Survival wasn't guaranteed. For every Homo sapiens alive today, dozens of other species vanished. The hidden humans remind us that we are not inevitable. We are a lucky branch of a chaotic, fragile tree. Without their contributions, maybe we would have gone extinct instead. And yet, by vanishing, they gave us something priceless. A reminder of how much we don't know. Their absence humbles us. It reminds us that even with satellites and gene sequencing, the past still hides secrets too big to solve easily. The hidden humans are the blank thread in our tapestry, the missing color that makes us wonder what the full picture really looked like. Here's the thought I want to leave you with tonight. Maybe the hidden humans never truly disappeared. Maybe they walk with us still. Not in bone, not in flesh, but in spirit. Every cell of your body carries echoes of their survival. When your immune system fights off an infection, when your metabolism adjusts to hardship, when your body adapts to a new environment, you may be calling on genes that came from them. In that sense, they're not gone at all. And perhaps that's why this mystery feels so unsettling. They are us, and yet not us. Can we never met relatives without names, ancestors without graves? We carry their story forward simply by existing. So as you close your eyes tonight, picture them walking beside you. Ghosts not of fear, but of family. They didn't leave bones, but they left something far more enduring. They left themselves inside us. That's the hidden human species. Not lost, not forgotten. Just invisible, waiting in the code of life until we learn how to hear their voices. When scientists first uncovered ghost DNA, they were stunned. It wasn't just a tiny fragment, not just a genetic fluke. Instead, it was a pattern woven across multiple individuals, multiple tribes, even across continents. A silent signature that whispered of ancestors we never knew existed. But here's the problem. Without bones, without tools, without art, how do you tell the story of a people? Normally, archaeology builds history from fragments of stone and bone. A spear point, a burial site, a painted wall. All of these serve as windows into lost lives. With the ghost humans, those windows are closed. We must peer through the smallest cracks, piecing together identities from genetic shadows. And yet, perhaps this invisibility tells us something profound. Maybe the hidden humans weren't great artists, weren't tool makers, weren't architects of civilization. Or maybe they were. But time erased their works so thoroughly that only their blood remains. Either possibility is staggering. To imagine a species so real it touched our lives forever, but so erased that no shovel, no excavation, no cave wall has revealed them. It feels like trying to recall a dream fading upon waking. The ghost humans remind us of a truth we often forget. History isn't just what survives in stone. History also lives inside of us, inside the code we carry. Our DNA is the most enduring archive, one that no climate, no river, no jungle can erase. And in that archive, the hidden species waits, whispering. We were here. Picture a dark night 200,000 years ago. A circle of figures sits by a campfire, sparks rising into the black sky. They talk in low voices, the language of survival, warnings of predators, the memory of a river, the telling of a hunt. Some of those figures are human. Others, not quite. This scene may feel fictional, but genetically, it's real. Encounters between humans and hidden species weren't fleeting accidents. They were repeated, meaningful, close enough to change us forever. That means nights like this. Shared fires, shared food, perhaps even shared laughter. Must have happened countless times. But why didn't the hidden humans leave traces of their world? Were they nomads who traveled light and never leaving permanent dwelling? Did they live in regions where stone tools were unnecessary, using wood, plant fiber, or bone? Materials that rot away with time? Or did they have habits so unlike ours that we wouldn't even recognize their tools if we found them? Every question deepens the mystery. And yet, even without the answers, the ghost humans feel strangely close, because as we imagine them, we realize their lives weren't so different from ours. They feared the dark, they trusted the fire, they loved, quarreled, dreamed. They lived on the same earth, under the same stars, and for a time they lived with us. The campfires of the forgotten may be gone, their ashes scattered, their bones dissolved. But in a way, the fire never went out. It burns inside us, in the bloodline they helped shape. Sometimes, survival depends not on strength, but on wisdom. And it may be that the hidden humans gave us lessons we never realized we were learning. Consider this. The DNA fragments we inherited weren't random. They seem to cluster around immunity, metabolism, and resilience to harsh climates. This suggests the hidden species carried knowledge, written not in language, but in flesh. They had adapted to environments that would have overwhelmed our ancestors, and when we encountered them, we absorbed those adaptations like a borrowed shield. Think of it this way. Imagine arriving in a strange land where the plants are poisonous, the insects deadly, the weather brutal. You could spend thousands of years evolving the right defenses, or you could inherit them instantly through children born of mixed lineage. In that child's blood, the wisdom of the land would already be present. That's what ghost DNA offered us, shortcuts to survival. It wasn't just biology, it was education, passed silently across species, teacher to student, without a single word spoken. And without it, perhaps our story would have ended in those early chapters. We often think of ourselves as the clever, dominant species, but maybe our survival was a gift from a people who vanished, who left no monuments, but whose sacrifice ensured we could endure. In that sense, the hidden humans are our silent teachers, their lessons still echoing every time our immune system fights, every time we adapt to hardship. For thousands of years, humanity shared this planet with shadows. Not shadows in the literal sense, but neighbors so mysterious that even today, we struggle to give them faces. The hidden humans lived alongside us, and yet we cannot picture them clearly. Did they look like us? Broad-faced, upright, clever-eyed? Or did they bear features we'd find strange, uncanny, otherworldly? Did their voices sound human? Or did they carry tones unlike anything we've heard? These questions haunt us because we may never know. And yet, maybe that's why the mystery grips us so tightly. In a world full of fossils and artifacts, here is a reminder that the past can still hide secrets larger than we ever imagined. The hidden species was close enough to leave children among us, but distant enough that those children carried echoes of difference. They were both kin and stranger, both family and alien. To imagine walking through a forest, hearing footsteps behind you, and realizing the footsteps belong not to predator or prey, but to a different kind of human, it stirs something deep, almost primal, a sense that our history isn't finished, that other chapters may still lie buried beneath earth and time. When shadows walked beside us, they left more than footprints. They left questions, questions that remind us our species wasn't alone and perhaps never truly will be. The hidden humans may have vanished, but in truth, they left us with more than DNA. They left us with a mirror. By studying them, we glimpse not only who they were, but who we are. Their disappearance forces us to ask, why us and not them? Were we more adaptable, more cooperative, or simply more lucky? Did their absence make space for our dominance, or did their contributions make our survival possible? In their silence, they challenge us. We build monuments of stone, believing they will last forever. But the hidden humans remind us that even species can disappear, that permanence is an illusion. They teach us humility, that we are not the end of evolution, only its current expression. And maybe most of all, they teach us gratitude. Every breath we take carries fragments of their survival. Every heartbeat echoes with their legacy. They did not vanish completely, because we carry them forward. As you drift into sleep tonight, hold this thought close. The hidden humans were not failures of evolution. They were chapters in the same story, and without them, there would be no us. The story of the hidden humans really begins not in caves or deserts, but in laboratories. For decades, scientists believed we knew the cast of human history. Neanderthals, Denisovans, Homo erectus, and us, Homo sapiens. The script was written, the actors named. But when geneticists began sequencing ancient DNA, the play took a shocking turn. Inside the double helix of modern populations, researchers found sequences that didn't match any known species. They weren't Neanderthal, they weren't Denisovan, they weren't sapiens. They were something else entirely. A missing actor with no face, no bones, no name. What stunned researchers most was the distribution. These ghost signatures appeared in people from Africa, Asia, and Oceania, suggesting not one but multiple hidden populations. It was like finding fingerprints of visitors at a crime scene without ever discovering who left them. But this wasn't just an academic curiosity. Ghost DNA showed us something radical. Our story was never clean, never linear. It wasn't one species replaces another. It was a braided river. Channels intertwining, branching, rejoining. Humanity was never alone, but part of a tangled web of cousins, each shaping the other in silence. Even now, every time you breathe, your blood carries strands of information that belong not just to humans, but to a vanished species that never left bones. You are their descendant, even if you don't know their name. Let's imagine a place where the hidden humans may have walked. Somewhere not far from the Rift Valley, 200,000 years ago. The land is a mosaic of deserts and rivers, savannas and forests. Herds of antelope scatter across the plains. Lions crouch in the tall grass, and moving quietly through this world is a band of beings we cannot fully picture. They look human, but not quite. Their eyes carry a different spark. Their voices rise in unfamiliar rhythms. They are close enough to us that bonds can form, but different enough to remain mysterious. These are the hidden humans, and they leave no trace we can dig up. Why? Because deserts are erasers. Bones crumble quickly in dry winds. Wooden spears rot before they fossilize. Footprints vanish beneath shifting sands. The desert swallows evidence with a patience measured in millennia. But while the desert erased their bones, it could not erase their children. Some of their descendants survived, carrying fragments of DNA across generations until, unknowingly, they reached you. This is why ghost DNA matters. It proves that even when the earth wipes clean its canvas, the story doesn't disappear. It lingers in flesh, blood, and bone, the living archives of survival. And when you think about it that way, the desert isn't just an eraser, it's a vault. It hid their bodies but preserved their legacy inside us. Imagine tracing your family tree, branch by branch, back through time. Parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, until you reach a horizon where names disappear. And there, among the expected figures, you find someone you can't explain. A stranger whose name no one remembers, whose face no photo shows, but whose blood runs in your veins. That's what the ghost species is, the stranger in our family tree. They're not a distant cousin we can politely ignore. They are an ancestor who shaped who we are. What does it mean to have an ancestor you can't see? For one, it forces us to redefine family. Humanity isn't just Homo sapiens, it's a collective. We are mosaics stitched together by encounters across time, and in that mosaic, some tiles are missing, their colors only guessed. The ghost species challenges our sense of uniqueness. We like to believe we stand alone at the peak of evolution. But what if we're standing on the shoulders of others? What if the intelligence we prize, the resilience we celebrate, the creativity we worship are not just ours, but legacies shared across vanished kin? The stranger in our tree doesn't diminish us, it enriches us. It means our humanity is larger than sapiens alone. It's a chorus of voices, some of which are now silent, yet still heard in the echoes of our DNA. One of the most haunting questions about the hidden humans is this: did they speak? Language is humanity's superpower. It lets us teach, imagine, cooperate, and remember. If the hidden species left no bones, did they also leave no words? Or did their voices once echo in valleys, carried by wind, only to vanish with their disappearance? We may never know, but genetic evidence hints that they were more than mute shadows. Some fragments in our DNA involve brain development and speech-related genes. This suggests the possibility that the hidden humans weren't silent at all. Maybe their voices blended with ours. Maybe they taught us new words or new ways of arranging sounds. If so, their language didn't vanish. It lingers in the roots of dialects, in forgotten syllables embedded in tribal tongues. Even today, when we speak, we might be speaking not just as sapiens, but as descendants of a shared chorus, singing songs written by species that left no bones. It's a sobering thought. The next time you whisper, shout, or laugh, remember, your voice may carry the faintest notes of theirs. Words are fossils too, only living ones. The most frustrating part of this mystery is obvious. Why are there no bones? Archaeologists have theories. Some suggest the hidden humans lived in regions where fossilization was nearly impossible. Humid forests, acidic soils, turbulent coasts. Others think their populations were small, scattered, fragile, meaning the odds of preservation were slim from the start. A few even argue that perhaps we have found their bones, but misclassified them, unable to recognize their subtle differences from known species. There's also the darker possibility. Maybe they never buried their dead. Without burials, bones are at the mercy of scavengers, floods, and weather. Centuries can erase even the strongest skeleton. But here's the twist. Absence doesn't mean insignificance. The missing bones are not proof of irrelevance, but of fragility. They remind us that history is biased toward what survives. The hidden species might have sung, hunted, loved, and thrived every bit as richly as Neanderthals or sapiens, but the Earth simply chose not to keep their record. Yet in a way, their absence is more powerful than presence. Because now, every person alive carries the proof. We are their bones, we are their fossils. We are the evidence that they existed, walking silently beside us, forever unseen yet forever remembered. Most ghost DNA traces come from Africa, the cradle of humanity. And that fact alone changes everything. For years, scientists framed Africa as the homeland of sapiens alone, a single stage where our ancestors rose, spread, and conquered. But ghost DNA says otherwise. It whispers that sapiens weren't alone, even in their birthplace. Some African groups carry genetic fragments that diverged from our line almost 1 million years ago. That means a separate species was thriving, evolving, and surviving right alongside our direct ancestors. They weren't a brief offshoot. They were long-lasting, successful, and capable enough to leave their mark on us. Picture it: lush forests teeming with life, rivers churning with crocodiles, savannas where lions stalk gazelles. Into this dangerous world walked two kinds of humans: our ancestors and their mysterious cousins. They met, they mingled. They had children whose blood carried strands of both, and then the cousins vanished. No skulls, no skeletons, no tools, only whispers and DNA. Their story is written not in stone, but in living flesh. It's as if Africa birthed siblings, but one line disappeared without leaving a trace, except in us. Here's a wild idea. What if the hidden humans were explorers? Some genetic models suggest their traces appear in island populations, particularly in Oceania. But fossils from those regions don't match any known species. Could it be that the hidden species mastered travel in ways we underestimate? Imagine hollowed-out logs lashed into rafts, carrying families across dangerous seas. Imagine small bands landing on distant shores, carving out lives in places untouched by others. They may have lived in coastal settlements, made of wood, seaweed, shell, that dissolved over millennia, leaving nothing for archaeologists to find. If this theory is true, then the hidden species may have been among the first seafarers. Not Neanderthals, not sapiens, but someone else, paddling into the unknown. That would explain why their genetic traces appear in scattered distant corners of the map. They weren't ghosts. They were sailors. Think about that for a moment. A species that left no bones may have crossed oceans before recorded history even dreamed of navigation. And though their boats rotted and their villages sank beneath tides, their journeys remain alive in the blood of the people who still carry them. Every human species had a survival strategy. Neanderthals built strong bodies and hunted in icy Europe. Denisovans adapted to mountains. Sapiens relied on adaptability and cooperation. But what about the hidden humans? What niche did they master? The DNA hints at one answer: immunity to strange pathogens. This suggests they lived close to ecosystems teeming with disease, jungles or wetlands filled with insects and parasites. To survive there, they must have developed robust defenses, so imagine them as jungle hunters. Moving silently through the green shadows, their bodies resistant to fevers that would kill us in days. Hunting with wooden spears, weaving nets from fibers, gathering fruits and roots that sustained them for generations. And then, gone. Climate shifts, competition, or perhaps even assimilation into sapiens' lines erased their presence. But their immunity, their invisible armor, didn't die. It passed into us. Today, some populations still carry those ancient defenses, the hidden human's gift across tens of thousands of years. It's eerie to think about. Diseases that once felled our ancestors might have been survived, thanks to cousins we never knew. Cousins whose bones dissolved but whose protection endures in our blood. It's tempting to see the hidden humans as rivals, but their legacy tells a softer story too. The only way ghost DNA entered our line is through love, or at least through unions between species. And that means the encounters weren't always violent or desperate. Sometimes they were intimate. Picture a clearing by a riverbank. A young sapiens meet someone from the hidden species. Their features are strange but not alien. They share food, laughter, maybe even rituals. Against all odds, bonds form. And one day a child is born, a bridge between two kinds of human. That child carried a mixture of genomes, and against all odds, their line survived. Today, scattered across continents, millions of us unknowingly carry fragments of that child's inheritance. When you think of it that way, ghost DNA isn't just science, it's poetry. It's proof that love can leave marks deeper than stone. Even if an entire species fades, its touch lingers in every heartbeat of its descendants. The hidden humans may have left no bones, but they left a legacy of love written in us. Every story has an ending, and for the hidden humans, that ending is a mystery. Why did they vanish? Some theories say competition with sapiens drove them out. Others suggest climate collapse shrank their numbers until survival became impossible. A darker possibility is disease. Ironically, the very ecosystems they adapted to might have created plagues that ended them. But maybe it wasn't destruction at all. Maybe they didn't vanish. They dissolved. Slowly through generations of interbreeding, their distinct identity faded into ours. Like a river joining another, their name disappeared, but their water still flows inside us. The vanishing point of the hidden species isn't silence. It's transformation. They are not lost because we are here. Every heartbeat, every breath, every strand of DNA proves it. They survive through us, even if we cannot name them. And perhaps in that sense, the story of the hidden humans isn't a tragedy. It's emerging. They became part of the human chorus, unseen, but never forgotten. When scientists first began sequencing human genomes in the early 2000s, they expected neat answers. They thought they would trace all our ancestry back to known fossils: Homo sapiens, Neanderthals, Denisovans. But instead, they found puzzles. Some pieces of our genetic code didn't fit into any of these categories. They were older, stranger, branching away from the tree in unexpected directions. It was as if someone had hidden fragments of an ancient manuscript inside the pages of a new book. This is ghost DNA, the leftover fingerprints of a species that left no bones. These time capsules of code act like clues, allowing scientists to reconstruct a shadowy presence that otherwise would have been invisible. The astonishing part is how precise these time capsules can be. Certain fragments suggest interbreeding events that happened 30,000, 50,000, even 200,000 years ago. Each fragment is like a timestamp, a reminder that sapiens and their shadow cousins crossed paths again and again. So while bones rot and shelters collapse, DNA carries a memory that refuses to die. It tells us they were here, they lived, they touched us. Even if archaeology remains silent, genetics speaks with authority. And its message is clear: human history is far messier, richer, and more entangled than we ever imagined. When Denisovans were discovered in 2010, they shocked the world. A single pinky bone from Siberia unlocked an entire new species. Since then, researchers have found more Denisovan traces in the same cave. But for the hidden humans, no such cave has appeared. And that's haunting. Because if Denisovans left even the tiniest bones, shouldn't the hidden species have left something too? Why not a molar, a femur, a jaw fragment? Some researchers suggest they may have lived in regions where fossilization is rare. Humid jungles, acidic soils, constant floods, all destroy bones quickly. Imagine a species thriving in rainforest valleys or river deltas, where skeletons dissolve before they can ever harden into fossils. Over tens of thousands of years, every trace vanishes. Others propose they lived in caves now lost to rising seas. During the Ice Age, ocean levels were far lower, exposing vast stretches of coastline. When ice melted, those coasts drowned, hiding any shelters and bones forever. So maybe the Denisova cave lies underwater, untouched, waiting. Somewhere beneath the waves could rest the proof, the bones of the hidden humans. Until then, we live with an eerie absence, a cave that never was. One of the most unsettling theories about the hidden humans is that they weren't wiped out by predators, famine, or sapiens competition, but by parasites. But DNA evidence hints that they carried unique adaptations against diseases. But that same clue suggests a terrible possibility. Perhaps they lived in an ecological niche where parasites dominated. Insects, worms, microbes, things that ravage populations slowly, invisibly. Imagine entire clans weakened by fevers, plagued by wasting illnesses, cut down not by spears but by invisible armies of parasites. Over generations, their numbers dwindled. The adaptations they carried weren't enough. The parasites evolved too, staying one step ahead. The survivors may have interbred with sapiens, passing along a few genetic shields before their species disappeared entirely. In this sense, their gift to us came at the cost of their own existence. It's chilling to think that humanity might owe some of its current immunities to a vanished people who battled parasites until the very end. The hidden species may not have left bones, but in our immune systems, their war still echoes. Long before genetics, human cultures told stories of others. Myths from Africa, Asia, and Oceania often speak of shadow tribes. Shorter, stranger, or more elusive people who once lived alongside ancestors but vanished. Take the San people of southern Africa, who have tales of small first people living in the land before them. Or stories from Melanesia about mysterious forest dwellers who disappeared into the night. Even Aboriginal traditions in Australia describe encounters with hairy people who left no remains. For centuries, scholars dismissed these tales as folklore. But what if they were fragments of truth? Oral memory of encounters with hidden humans, preserved not in bones but in story. It's possible that while science digs in soil, mythology digs in memory. Ghost DNA in ancient myths may be describing the same reality. Shadow peoples who lived, mingled, and then vanished. If so, then the hidden humans haven't been forgotten at all. They've been hiding in plain sight, their memory woven into the legends of countless cultures. Even after decades of research, the hidden human species remains unsolved. Their DNA shows up in modern genomes, but we don't know their faces, their voices, their tools, or their names. Were they tall or small? Did they have brow ridges like Neanderthals, or flat faces like us? Did they sing, dance, tell stories around fire? Or were they a quieter, more elusive people slipping through forests unseen? Science may one day answer these questions, but for now they remain shadows. And maybe that's fitting, because their story forces us to remember how fragile history is. Fossils crumble, tools decay, names vanish, but connections endure. The unfinished puzzle of the hidden humans is less about them, and more about us. It reminds us that humanity is not a straight line, but a tapestry, woven with threads from countless hands, including some we will never fully see. And maybe that's the ultimate lesson. We are never alone in our history. Even the bones that never existed still shaped who we are. When modern humans encountered Neanderthals, Denisovans, and likely the hidden humans, they didn't just compete, they mingled. Genetic evidence proves it. But what about the children of these unions? Hybrid children must have existed. Imagine a sapiens woman bearing a child with features she had never seen before. Wider cheekbones, darker skin, or even subtler differences hidden in the immune system. These children were bridges between worlds. Some may have been cherished as symbols of unity. Others may have faced suspicion, living between two peoples but belonging fully to neither. Over time, the descendants of these children carried forward small fragments of hidden DNA, weaving them into the genetic fabric of humanity. Today, many people around the world unknowingly carry traces of these ancient encounters. What's haunting is this. Without bones, these hybrid children are invisible to archaeology, yet in a way they never vanished. Their blood flows in us. Their survival became our survival, and their shadow ensures the hidden humans never truly disappeared. One of the most fascinating possibilities is that the hidden humans may have lived on islands now lost to time. During the Ice Age, sea levels were over 100 meters lower than today. Vast stretches of land connected regions that are now islands. Entire communities could have thrived there, isolated from the rest of the world. When the seas rose, their homes disappeared. Villages, hunting grounds, burial sites, all drowned beneath the waves. If their bones ever existed, they now rest on seabeds buried under silt. This would explain their ghostly absence from the fossil record. It would also explain why we only see their traces in DNA. They could have flourished unseen, leaving only their genetic whispers as proof. If future technology allows deep-sea archaeology, perhaps one day we'll find evidence of these sunken populations. Until then, the hidden humans remain like Atlantis. Half science, half myth, always out of reach. 40,000 years ago, the world was not the lonely place it feels like today. Imagine walking across ancient landscapes and finding not one, not two, but 5 or more kinds of humans. Neanderthals in Europe, Denisovans in Asia, Floresiensis on Indonesian islands, Luzonensis in the Philippines, and sapiens spreading everywhere, carrying fire and language. Now add to that list the hidden humans. They were part of this crowded world, a world buzzing with diversity, where being human was not exclusive to us. Different groups must have seen each other, traded with each other, fought, and sometimes loved one another. But survival is brutal. Over millennia, one by one, the others vanished. Today, sapiens are alone. The crowded human planet became a silent one. And the hidden species, they disappeared even more quietly than the rest, leaving behind not even bones, just fragments of code whispering in our veins. What if the hidden humans weren't just victims of disease, climate, or competition? What if they faced a predator so relentless, it erased them before history began? Some anthropologists suggest that giant Ice Age predators, saber-toothed cats, cave lions, hyenas, played a much larger role in shaping human survival. If the hidden humans lived in vulnerable territories, these predators might have kept their numbers dangerously low. Imagine small bands of hidden humans constantly stalked by predators, losing children, hunters, even entire families. Over centuries, this pressure could have pushed them toward extinction. Meanwhile, sapiens developed better tools, fire strategies, and cooperation to resist the same predators. If true, then the hidden humans might represent a tragic branch of evolution. People who were just as clever as us, but unlucky enough to stand on ground where the predators always had the upper hand. Their bones may be gone, but the silence they left behind still roars with possibility. Science is trained to seek presence, fossils, tools, ruins. But sometimes, absence itself is evidence. The hidden humans may be the greatest example of this. Their silence, the missing bones, the missing shelters, the missing art, is not meaningless. It tells us they lived in ways that erase their traces. Perhaps they never carved durable stone tools. Perhaps they built with wood, leaves, and rope, materials swallowed by time. Perhaps they buried their dead in shallow, unprotected soil. The silence is also evidence of fragility. They didn't dominate landscapes the way sapiens eventually did. They lived lightly, leaving behind only what nature could erase. And yet their ghost DNA shouts from within us, "We existed, even if you cannot see us." The hidden humans force science to confront humility. Not everything will be found. Not every species will leave fossils. Sometimes silence is all we have. And sometimes silence is the loudest truth of all. When scientists first sequenced the human genome, they expected neat answers. Instead, they stumbled into mystery. Within our DNA, there are segments, long stretches of code, that don't quite belong. They aren't Neanderthal. They aren't Denisovan. They aren't anything we've cataloged. These fragments are the fingerprints of the hidden humans. Imagine your genetic code as a library, row after row of ancient books, some as old as 50,000 years. Among the well-labeled volumes, you suddenly find torn pages from a missing story, characters who appear nowhere else, yet whose words flow into your life. That is what our DNA reveals. Some of these ghost genes are tied to immune responses, altitude adaptation, or even metabolism. In other words, the hidden humans may have gifted us traits that allowed sapiens to survive in harsh environments. Their disappearance didn't erase them entirely. It made them part of us. And here's the eerie part. If you're alive today, there's a chance that somewhere in your body, a fragment of hidden human DNA is working quietly, unseen. Proof that someone once lived, breathed, and fought to survive, even though no bone of theirs remains in the earth. Why no bones? That's the haunting question. Neanderthal fossils have been found across Europe. Denisovan remains, though rare, exist in a Siberian cave. Even the tiny Homo floresiensis left skeletons on an Indonesian island. But the hidden humans? Nothing. One possibility is geography. If they lived in tropical or swampy regions, bones would have decayed quickly, devoured by moisture and bacteria. Another possibility is burial practice. What if they cremated their dead, scattering ashes into rivers or mountains? Such rituals would erase physical traces, but align perfectly with the eerie absence of remains. Or maybe they were simply unlucky. Fossilization is a rare miracle. Most living beings never fossilize. Bodies rot, wash away, or are consumed. If the hidden humans lived in small numbers, their remains might never have been captured in stone. This makes their ghostly presence all the more intriguing. To exist without bones yet still shape our DNA is to leave the faintest but most profound of marks. It's like they whispered through time, "We were here, but you will never see us." Imagine trekking through Ice Age forests, cold mist curling between trees. You hear movement, shapes loom in the distance. At first, you assume it's another group of sapiens. But then, as they draw near, you realize something's off. Their bodies are shaped differently. Their faces are not like yours. Their language, if they have one, sounds strange, guttural, or melodic in ways you can't place. Could this have been the hidden human? If so, imagine the tension of such encounters. Were they competitors, rivals for the same hunting grounds? Or did they trade tools, food, or stories? Some encounters may have been peaceful, others bloody. We may carry echoes of these meetings in our myths, stories of shadowy tribes that vanish into forests, people almost like us, who lived close enough to fear but distant enough to remain mysterious. The hunters in the mist never left us their faces, but the possibility that sapiens once locked eyes with them, across firelit nights or foggy river crossings, is both thrilling and chilling. They were real, they were here, and then they were gone. The hidden humans remind us of something uncomfortable. Being human does not guarantee survival. They were as real as you and me. They had children, dreams, and fears. Yet in the grand story of evolution, they were swept away. Maybe disease played its part. Perhaps their immune systems couldn't handle pathogens carried by other humans. Maybe climate change shrank their food sources. Or maybe, like so many species, they simply couldn't adapt fast enough. This fragility is humbling. We often think of sapiens as inevitable, as the pinnacle of evolution. But the hidden humans prove otherwise. Survival was a coin toss. If luck had flipped the other way, perhaps their DNA, not ours, would dominate the Earth. We might be the forgotten species, and they might be the storytellers. Their silence is a lesson. No matter how strong or clever a species is, survival requires more than intelligence. It requires timing, adaptation, and sometimes sheer chance. At some unknown point, the hidden humans took their last breath. We don't know where or when it happened. Was it a small band in a forest, slowly dwindling until no child survived to adulthood? Was it a single tribe wiped out by a storm, a fire, or a rival's spear? Their end is invisible, but we can imagine it. A mother burying her last child, a hunter realizing there were no others left, a community dispersing into the wilderness, never to gather again, and then silence. No bones. No bones. No settlements. No songs carved into stone. Just the faint threads of DNA, tucked inside our bodies like pressed flowers in a forgotten book. The final vanishing of the hidden humans is not a tragedy alone. It is also a reminder of how thin the line is between survival and oblivion. They may be gone, but their shadow lingers. In us, they live again. And though history forgot their names, their existence reshaped humanity forever. When scientists mapped modern genomes across the globe, they expected neat patterns. Neanderthal DNA in Europeans, Denisovan DNA in Asians and Pacific Islanders, and so on. But in certain populations, particularly in parts of South Asia, Oceania, and even Africa, they found genetic sequences that didn't match any known ancient human. These orphan genes were the breadcrumbs of the hidden humans. Imagine unrolling a map of the world, but instead of cities and rivers, you see glowing streaks of ancient DNA scattered across populations. Each glowing thread is a whisper, pointing to a forgotten encounter with a species we can't name. What's more, these sequences aren't trivial. Some affect immunity, resistance to altitude sickness, or even skin adaptation to different climates. Without them, some human populations might not have survived their environments at all. The hidden humans didn't leave bones, but they left blueprints for survival. It's almost poetic. While their bodies vanished into the earth, their legacy is etched into ours. Their bones may be gone, but their fingerprints remain in every heartbeat. Let's step into the Ice Age night. The wind howls across frozen plains. A small group of sapiens huddles around a fire, hands outstretched, eyes darting at every sound in the dark. Then, from beyond the firelight movement, figures approaching. At first they fear predators, but the shadows take human shape. The faces, however, are strange. Not Neanderthal, not sapiens. Something else. Did this happen? Perhaps archaeology can't prove it, but the genetics strongly suggest contact. What was said or not said in those moments could have determined history. Did they share food? Did they trade knowledge? Did they look at each other with curiosity or fear? Some encounters might have been fleeting, forgotten by both sides. Others may have left lasting impressions. Children born, alliances formed, maybe even songs exchanged. Firelight was a universal human language. If the hidden humans ever stood across a flame from us, they would have seen the same sparks reflected in our eyes. And maybe in that brief flicker, we recognized each other, not as rivals, but as mirrors. What if the hidden humans didn't simply die out, but chose to fade away? It sounds almost impossible, but consider this. Small populations under stress sometimes retreat, withdrawing into deeper forests, higher mountains, or distant islands. To survive, they avoid confrontation, they leave little behind. They slip into the margins of existence until they vanish from view. Could the hidden humans have done this? Perhaps they lived parallel to sapiens for thousands of years, watching us expand and dominate. Maybe they knew they could not compete with our numbers, our weapons, or our ambition. Instead of resisting, they melted away, blending into isolated regions. Over time, their numbers dwindled until extinction was inevitable. This would explain why we find no bones, because they lived lightly, left nothing monumental, and vanished like whispers. It's a haunting thought. An entire species that chose disappearance over conflict, leaving their fate in silence. And in doing so, they became the ultimate mystery, seen only in the traces we carry. Every culture has myths of others, shadow people in the forests, tribes who live underground, giants, dwarfs, and shapeshifters who resemble humans, but aren't quite the same. For centuries, anthropologists dismissed these as fairy tales. But what if some of these myths were faint cultural memories of real encounters with hidden humans? Take the legends of small-statured forest dwellers in Southeast Asia, or the wild men of Europe, or the mountain spirits in Central Asia described as half-human. These myths could be distorted, echoes of real meetings with human species that lived alongside us, but eventually disappeared. Myths preserve memory differently than fossils. They exaggerate, they distort, but they never entirely forget. Perhaps the hidden humans live on in folklore, their stories carried forward long after their bones dissolved into the soil. If true, every bedtime story of strange beings, every whispered tale of shadow tribes may be less fiction than we think, faded photographs of encounters from humanity's deep past. The deeper we dive, the clearer one truth becomes. The hidden humans never fully disappeared. They live in us, quietly, invisibly. Every breath you take, every beat of your heart, is powered by DNA that didn't all come from sapiens. Some of it is borrowed, gifts from species who left no skeletons but shaped our survival. When you fight off a cold, adapt to thin air at altitude, or metabolize food differently than your ancestors, you might be drawing on the legacy of the hidden humans. Their story is not just about extinction, it's about transformation. Their bodies are gone, their villages forgotten, but they are still here, haunting us from the inside. And that is perhaps the greatest mystery of all. The hidden humans are invisible to history, invisible to archaeology, but they are not invisible to life. They walk with us every day, disguised as our own reflection. Science today gives us tools our ancestors could never imagine. One of the most powerful is the ability to read DNA like an ancient diary. Every mutation, every inherited fragment is a timestamp, a record of something that happened long ago. When researchers first applied this time machine to human genomes, they expected to trace back to known events. The Neanderthal encounters in Europe, the Denisovan traces in Asia, and indeed, they found those. But deeper in the data, patterns emerged that didn't fit any known species. These were ghost signatures, DNA from a population we had no fossil evidence for. It was like listening to a song where you recognize the main instruments, but faintly in the background, there's a strange melody you can't identify. That hidden tune belongs to the invisible humans. They may have lived 200,000 years ago, maybe earlier, overlapping with both sapiens and Neanderthals. We can't place their faces, We can't reconstruct their tools, but we can say they were there. And every time we map another genome, the ghostly melody gets a little louder. Bones are storytellers, but they're also fragile. For a species to be known in the fossil record, countless lucky accidents must align. The body must fall in the right place, be buried quickly, avoid scavengers, and remain undisturbed for millennia. Then, one day, erosion or excavation must bring it back into the light. For the hidden humans, those accidents never happened. Or if they did, we haven't found the evidence yet. Entire species can exist without leaving a single fossil in the record we've uncovered. In fact, paleontologists remind us constantly, absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. Consider how recently we discovered the Denisovans. Not through skeletons, not through caves full of artifacts, but through a single finger bone fragment found in Siberia. A bone so small you could misplace it in your pocket. Yet from that one fragment, a whole branch of humanity was revealed. If a single fragment can reveal an entire lost people, then how many hidden humans remain to be found? How many are still out there, buried under layers of time, waiting for one lucky discovery to rewrite history? One of the strangest questions about the hidden humans isn't just where they went, but who they left behind. Because if we carry their DNA, it means sapiens interbred with them. But why? Were these unions rare, accidental, violent? Or were they more complex? Did they live alongside us long enough to form bonds, relationships, even families? This isn't just speculation. Some of the ghost DNA we carry isn't random. It clusters in regions linked to immunity, metabolism, and even brain development. That suggests natural selection favored these inherited traits. They weren't just accidents of mating, they were useful gifts. Imagine a band of sapiens encountering a hidden human group. Instead of conflict, there's curiosity, exchange of food. Then, perhaps exchange of people, children born of both. And those children carry traits that help their descendants survive plagues, endure hunger, or adapt to cold. In that sense, the hidden humans didn't disappear. They became part of us, folded into our story through bloodlines that ripple forward into every generation alive today. Picture a night 70,000 years ago. The world is dark, no streetlights, no hum of machines, just firelight and the sound of predators in the distance. A group of sapiens sits awake telling stories. Then, from beyond the fire, voices echo, human voices but strange. Were they rivals, friends, something in between? We will never know for certain. But the DNA evidence suggests these encounters were real. In the silence of prehistoric nights, there were conversations across species. Perhaps they exchanged words, or maybe only gestures. Perhaps they fought. Perhaps they shared meat. Perhaps they traded mates. It's unsettling because it reminds us humanity was never alone. For most of our history, there were always others. Other species of humans sharing the earth, shaping us as much as we shaped them. And those whispers lost to time are still inside us, encoded in every cell. We are haunted not just by their absence, but by their presence within us. Somewhere, buried under a mountain or deep in a forest, there may still be bones of the hidden humans. If they're found, the mystery will shift from shadows to certainty. But even if no bones ever emerge, we already know they existed. Every one of us carries their signature. It's in the curve of your DNA, in the way your immune system responds to threats, in the tiny quirks of your biology. The hidden humans are not ghosts in the traditional sense. They are ancestors. Not in name, not in face, but in essence. Their extinction was not absolute. Their legacy lives in every single person alive today. And perhaps that is the most haunting truth of all. They did not leave bones because they didn't need to. They left themselves inside us, their invisible monument etched in our very being. Their disappearance is not just tragedy. It is transformation. The hidden humans never died. They became us. Geneticists have a chilling term for the traces left behind by lost humans: ghost lineages. These are branches of the human family tree that we can see in the DNA, but whose bones or artifacts have never been found. Imagine looking at a tree, but instead of branches with leaves, you see faint shadows of branches, outlines that shouldn't exist but do. That's what ghost lineages are. Studies of African genomes have revealed that up to 19% of some populations, DNA comes from an unknown hominin that never appears in the fossil record. Not Neanderthals, not Denisovans, something else entirely. This is the unsettling part. These ghost humans weren't a small blip. They interbred enough that their genes are still carried by millions of people today. And yet, where are their bones? Where are their tools, their art, their homes? It's as if they lived, loved, and vanished, without leaving a trace, except for the whispers still carried in our cells. A species that never wanted to be remembered, but ensured it couldn't be forgotten. Africa should be overflowing with fossils. After all, it is humanity's birthplace. But it isn't. The environment simply doesn't preserve bones well. Humidity, acidic soils, scavengers, all erase evidence before it can fossilize. That means entire human lineages could have come and gone in Africa, leaving no physical remains at all. For paleontologists, this is both frustrating and thrilling. It means the fossil record is a puzzle missing half its pieces. Every new discovery can rewrite the whole story. Take the famous ghost population that appears in West African DNA. Their genetic fingerprints show they diverged from known human species nearly 500,000 years ago. 500,000 years of history. Gone, except for genetic scraps. We imagine the fossil record as a library, but in truth, it's more like a burned library. The few books left are charred and incomplete with missing chapters. The hidden humans are the chapters we may never recover, but DNA is helping us rebuild the story word by word from the ashes. The DNA of ghost humans isn't random static. It speaks, if you know how to listen. Some of their genes live on because they gave us advantages. For example, sections of ghost DNA in African populations are linked to resistance against certain diseases. Others seem connected to metabolism, perhaps helping ancient humans survive periods of famine. This tells us something extraordinary. The hidden humans weren't just background characters. They were part of our survival strategy. Without them, perhaps modern humans wouldn't have spread so successfully. Think about that for a moment. You carry invisible fingerprints from a species that left no bones, no name, no story. Yet their gift is the reason you're here. It's almost spiritual, as if the hidden humans decided their role wasn't to be remembered, but to ensure someone else would be. Us. And that thought changes everything we know about what it means to be human. If you've ever felt déjà vu, you know the eerie sensation of remembering something you shouldn't. Our genomes are like that, haunted by memories we didn't live. Inside your DNA, there are echoes of lives lived hundreds of thousands of years ago by people whose names we'll never know. When a researcher isolates one of these ghost fragments, they're essentially uncovering forgotten memories of our species. And here's the haunting twist. Some of these ghost fragments don't just survive, they thrive. Natural selection actively preserved them, keeping them strong across thousands of generations. That means they weren't just random leftovers. They were necessary. What does that say about the hidden humans themselves? Were they adapted to climates we struggled with? Did they possess immunity to diseases that devastated early sapiens? Did they know ways of living that we simply copied into our biology? The pale shadows of memory suggest that our success isn't solely our own. It's borrowed strength, inherited from invisible allies who vanish into the mists of time. Every story of the hidden humans circles back to one unsolved riddle. Why did they vanish? Some scientists argue they were simply absorbed, merged into our bloodlines until nothing distinct remained. Others believe they were wiped out by climate change, unable to adapt to shifting landscapes. And then there's the darker possibility: conflict with our own ancestors. But the most haunting explanation is also the simplest. Maybe they didn't vanish at all. Maybe their disappearance is only an illusion caused by the holes in our fossil record. Perhaps one day, a jawbone, a skull, or even a full skeleton will emerge from a forgotten cave. And when it does, everything we thought we knew will collapse and rebuild in an instant. Until then, the hidden humans exist in a paradox, a species that is both gone and here, extinct yet alive, silent yet speaking through us. They left no bones, but they left us.